Welcome to Help Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Barbie. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of GRCAM, the Grassroots Community Activist Movement. On this platform, we discuss authentic urban news across the diaspora and what's happening on the African continent. If you're joining us for the first time, please hit that like button, share, and subscribe button on my YouTube page. We encourage our listeners worldwide to engage with us by leaving a public comment about the topics in the comment section below this audio podcast. Help make our audio podcast and our video podcast go viral by sharing my YouTube page with all of your friends and on any other social media sites that you are on. This will help get the ball rolling. Disclaimer: this content is for educational and informational purposes only. It is based on public available reports and verified media sources. We fully comply with YouTube's community guidelines. We do not promote violence, hate, or misinformation in any form. This podcast is available in three forms: audio, video, and also as a written text in order for us to reach our audience. Help Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast is our Black media component. I would like to encourage all of my listeners to subscribe to my Medium page where you can follow along during the podcast. I provide my Medium transcript in the comment section below this audio podcast. I want to do more than just news and social commentary, but at this time, this is where I'm at. It doesn't matter how bad I would like to get my Christian business up and running in Chicago. Without financial support from the Black grassroots and the global African family, then I am unable to do my God-given assignment, which is to recruit like-minded Black Americans and like-minded African immigrants within the United States. Together, we will build the best African American business within the United States of America, and that is the Grassroots Community Activist Institute of Chicago, for credibility before we expand the business to 10 African nations. This is why I'm reaching out to the global African family. If you are serious about me bringing my Christian business to the African continent, then please help me get my ebook on that bestsellers list, so that way the Black world would take our cause serious. And again, the name of my book is The Solution for Black America: Reclaiming, Rebuilding, and Restoring the Urban Ghettos in America, second edition. You can get the ebook, which I recommend everyone that's listening, please get that ebook. You can download it to your smartphone. It's $9.99. All I'm asking you to do is please read my story, read the whole book. If you agree with my vision and plan to help improve Black America, specifically Black Chicago, you will automatically become a GRCAM member. You do not have to live in the United States to become a GRCAM member. This business is going to be global, but I do want to get it started here in Chicago first. And I want to, GRCAM members, we are the ones that's going to have to build this business. But I lay everything out in the book. Secondly, encourage African immigrants who live in the United States of America from 10 African nations: South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, Angola, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Nigeria. Encourage them to purchase my ebook. And you can find my ebook, or you can purchase my soft cover book, which is $15 plus shipping and handling. You can find my book in the comment section below this audio podcast under my Amazon author page. Okay. I understand all of you who came over here to live out your American dream, but I need your help because for 34 years, Black Chicagoans have rejected and overlooked my vision and plan to help improve the African American community. The reason why is because of, like I say, that slave mentality. And that slave mentality has been going on for the past 400 years. In my business, we're going to combat against that slave mentality. Now, once my business materialize, and once I'm able to uh, connect with like-minded Black Americans beyond Chicago and like-minded African immigrants across the United States, once we work together, get smart boots on the ground here in the city of Chicago, and the business materialize, mark my words, everybody in Chicago is going to want to be a part of this business. But this business will be membership based. Those who have rejected me for the past 34 years would not be part of my business. The reason why you are able to live out your American dream, because you could have went to Europe, you could have went to Canada, you could have migrated to Australia or any other place, but you decided to come to the United States of America. And so I'm just saying this out of love. It was my ancestors that fought and died during the civil rights era to help, I'm going to say, African immigrants, Afro Caribbeans, as well as non white immigrant groups to come to this country. I'm not focusing on those other groups. I'm focusing on African immigrants specifically because I want to do business with. Hey, I had look. Black Americans treat me funny style too. Like I say, it's been 34 years, but hey, I'm doing the best that I can to move my business to the next level. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, I would say a lot of Black Americans that I run across, they tell me I should lower my standards. I can't listen to that. I can't lower my standards. No, I'm not going to have any con artists up in my business. This business is going to be legit. I require everybody that's going to be a member. I'm just saying a certified member, real member. Once we build the Gurkaya Chicago, we want to make relationships with, I would say, local residents, because after all, this is for them. I don't have any kids. This world don't deserve my seed, but that's another story. What I'm trying to do is get this business popping first on the west side of Chicago. We're going to cover Austin, Garfield Park, and North Lawndale. Then somewhere on the south side, I don't know where at, but we'll figure that out when the time comes and get it popping over there. We want to raise the bar in Black America. Again, the solution for Black America is the Grassroots Community Activist Institute of Chicago. We want to work with in the low-income African American community, because the I would say the middle-class African American community and the upper middle-class African American community are not going through the same issues that's taking place in the low-income African American community. And that's done by design. The white supremacist financial elites, they, created this redlining and try to exclude, our people that way. And basically, they wanted us to just actually kill each other off. That's basically what that was. And I survived the crack era. I was a victim of the crack era. And they flooded all them drugs in our communities. So that's basically what my film is about, my experience growing up in the inner cities. I came from a very dysfunctional family. It is what it is. But out of my love and compassion for my racial group, Black Americans, this is bigger than myself. This is why I've been at it for the past 34 years. Again, I don't want to be doing this another 34 years. This is why I created this platform. This is why I'm trying to turn my story into a film. Yes, I'm going to get a lot of pushback from the book, but hey, it is what it is. But that's how come I want the whole Black world to know my story, and I want to make sure worldwide, especially on the African continent, that none of my members will have to endure such foolishness that I had to go through for just trying to build something constructive in the African American community. This is unacceptable, and it's not cool at all. But this is my God-given assignment, and I'm doing the best that I can with the little resources that I have, because I'm on a shoestring budget. I can't sit up here and I was, some of my critics was suggesting to me, well, Emmanuel, won't you just get an office? I'm not trying to hear that. I'm already paying out of pocket, for the business title. I've been paying out of pocket. I pay the city, state, and the IRS since 2010. And again, I have my book out there, and that's barely selling. I have my virtual store out there. That items on there is barely selling. Even my bank, which is Fifth Third Bank, okay? They trying to encourage me to say, hey, would you like to take out a business loan? And I decline. I'm not going to sit up here and get myself put in debt. Now, without GRCAM members, doing their part, it is what it is. And again, the reason why I'm on these platforms, such as Zoom and StreamYard, and on YouTube and on all these other social media sites, is for me to broadcast my vision and plan, because this is where a lot of people are at. Yeah, Black youth, I'm gonna say Black millennials and Generation Z. This business is actually for you. I want to hire you, but I'm not in a position to hire anyone at this point because I'm not making any money from my book. I wrote the book in order to generate seed money. I created my virtual store in order to generate seed money so I can hire people. It is what it is. So yeah, I would say small-minded individuals that step to me and say, it sounds like a scam. Selling a book is not a scam. That's uneducated people talking that mess. Because once this business materialized, they'll be the first in line to want services. But again, my business is membership based. And so, hey, I'm selective. I'm not letting just because a person is melanated don't mean that they're going to be a part of this business. I want people that's on code. On code means all the principles that's in my revised book is the code for GRCAM members. It is what it is. Can't help everybody. And again, I don't want to sit up here and do this another 34 years. I'd rather, my goal, and if it's up to me, that, I would be able to get this film project fully funded and made through the help of my film project team. Because, again, this is not just about me. This is a team effort. Those that's like-minded, that want to see, I would say, Black people and African people do better. rather than us depending on these politicians, rather than us complaining about the white man and the governments. Over here, we're going to take personal responsibility, do the best that we can with the resources that we have, and separate ourselves from con artists, hardened criminals, degenerates, the black boule, uh, definitely urban terrorists, and I would say degenerates. We want to raise the bar, the standards. Not trying to say that we're better than those people, but we want to be on code and get things done so we can pass this business down to the next generation. That's all I'm trying to do. And I'm documenting what I'm doing. That's why I come on here and share my different stories, things that's going on in real time. Getting back to my presentation. So anyhow, the white supremacist financial elites, they only wanted European immigrants here, not anyone else. But the civil rights movement, my ancestors, they fought and died to have African immigrants, Afro-Caribbeans, and other non-white immigrant groups to come here. And unfortunately, that has hurt Black America because a lot of these other groups, when they get over here, they want to talk down on our lineage. That's not cool at all. And I ain't going to stand for that mess neither up in my business. If I have an African immigrant or Afro-Caribbean talking down against Black Americans, you can't do that, especially in my presence too. I can talk down against Black Americans because I am a Black American. I am a descendant of American slaves, and I wear that proudly on my shoulder. But again, we're not going to have that type of disrespect. And this business is going to compete against Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism has been out for 125 years. Over here, again, we want to connect with the residents in the community. We want to become, Gurkai Chicago, I want us to become a economic tax base. Let me just say that again. An economic base for the African American community. And we want to keep our children, our Black youth, get them off the streets, get them out of gangs, and let them use their talents and skills in this business. In return, we would give them a stipend, which will put money in their pockets so that they can feed their families and use their talents and skills in our films, stage plays. Also, for those that's going to be Gurkam, I would say musicians, both African as well as I would say Black artists. We're going to work it out so that way you can promote your music in our films and stage plays. Because I don't want to be sitting up here promoting other people, and we want to focus on those that's working with us. Those that's not going to patronize us, we ain't going to patronize them. That's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? So I encourage all of my listeners to join Gurkam by purchasing my ebook and reading my story for yourself. That's all I'm saying. And if you agree with my vision and plan to help improve Black America, specifically Black Chicago, then you will automatically become a Gurkam member. Again, this business is for Black millennials and Generation Z, especially those of y'all that's going to become Gurkam members. This is not my burden alone. This is a shared burden. Gurkam CAM members will fix all of the problems within Black society. I don't want the brand and the vision to die in America. I'm pushing this vision to be global, especially on the African continent. And this is my contribution to Africa's rising. Again, if you live in the United States of America, I would say that I'm looking for legitimate artists who are film directors, producers, actors, stage managers, professional fundraisers, technical directors, and marketers. But you're going to have to read my story first, because I'm not going to sit up here and have to try to explain everything. Read my story first. Once we raise that $250,000, then I want you all to make arrangements with me so you can come to Chicago for us to shoot this film, do all the stuff that's necessary that we need to do to get our permits and all that stuff, because it's going to be shot here in Chicago. If you're serious about doing business with me, then please make yourself known to me. I provide my email address in my revised book. We can do a voice call or a video call. But again, make yourself known to me. Don't wait until I'm dead. I'm trying to work with me while I'm alive. That's all I'm saying. Once we get our film project fully funded and made, and the proceeds from the film starts pouring in, then that will put me in a better position financially to purchase property in Chicago, Illinois, buy office equipment, hire qualified Black middle-class professionals and qualified African immigrants who have, well, I'm going to say that has the following. So Black attorneys, African attorneys, investors, Black entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and philanthropists. I want to make sure that our business will be effective and successful for years to come. I'm called by my Lord and Savior Jesus / Joshua to rebuild Black Chicago, similar to that of Nehemiah, who was called by God to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah used qualified engineers, architects, and inventors to rebuild a new city. In contrast, I am seeking Black middle-class professionals and African immigrants who hold degrees in the in those fields that I just mentioned above. So let's keep it a buck. The white man is not stopping Black Americans from purchasing my revised book. The white man is not stopping Black Americans from purchasing items from my virtual store. The white man is not stopping Black Americans from donating to my film project. That's a personal choice. That's Willie Lynch in real time, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said before, I have been paying out of pocket for my business title. I paid the city, state, and IRS ever since 2010 because I believe in our Black youth and our African youth. And yet, still to this day, I don't have anyone on my management team. It's just me and Sister Renee that's holding this thing down. And she's been working with me for the past 13 years. And that's why before I cut and run to Africa, I want to make sure that she's going to be well taken care of, that we dedicate a chapter for her in West Memphis, Arkansas. Now, she has a much better relationship with her family than me. So hopefully her family, would, help her out in terms of trying to help manage the business there in West Memphis, Arkansas. But as far as I'm concerned with my family, it ain't happening. I want to pass down the business not to my family, but to GRCAM members, because they'll sell it. Because again, a majority of my family members that I know of and that I talk about in the book, and that's going to be in the film, is full of that Willie Lynch. It is what it is. We cannot build with someone that's paranoid or just very negative, have a very limited view in life and all that stuff, or want to just sit up here and want to give you all kind of advice, but they ain't doing jack for you. I don't want to hear that mess. So over here, we don't play that. Um, so some of my critics may have asked me, how long will it take for you to get your film project fully funded and made? And I flipped that script. And I asked them, first of all, have you purchased my revised book? They say no. I asked them, have they bought items from my virtual store? They say no. I asked them, have they donated to the film project? They say no. Then I say, well, how in the hell do you expect me to do my jobs? Excuse the expression, but hey, it is what it is. That's what's holding me up. Again, it takes a team to make a dream work. Title of this presentation: the CBC never had Black America's interests because they are D1, and far right wing evangelical Christians use scriptures to justify anti-Black racism. Our first topic: the CBC never had Black America's best interest because they're D1. I've been calling out the Congressional Black Caucus for years. When Black women are dying in hospitals in large numbers, they don't have anything to say. They claim to be the defenders of Black interests as our representatives in the White House. But when you look at their track record and what they're fighting for, which is immigration, that has nothing to do with Black Americans because we're not immigrants. And it's very offensive when, these other groups want to sit up here and compare their situation with ours. Doggone it. Stop doing that. That's offensive because you all chose to come over here. My ancestors didn't have a choice. They was dragged on those slave ships against their will. So that's not cool at all. I don't like that mess. And I'm asking GRCAM members to call out any foreigners or anybody that's talked that mess, especially those Democrats, want to sit up here and put their situation with ours. We didn't ask to come to this country. Those lazy white supremacist financial elites didn't want to pick the cotton themselves. That's how come they took us or my ancestors. So their track record is just down the toilet. The Congressional Black Caucus, they are D1, meaning that they're Democrat first. And I'm going to use some recent examples. The Black maternal, just bear with me. The Black maternal mortality rate in America. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women in the richest nation on earth. That's not a statistics, that's a crisis. That's genocide happening in hospitals across this country. It's not because Black women don't seek medical care. It's because when they seek care, they're being ignored, dismissed, or disbelieved and left to suffer. 2 recent cases occurred. I provide the video clip on my Medium transcript located below this audio podcast in the comments section. Just click on the link, then scroll down to show and prove. In Dallas, a Black mother was left writhing in pain while hospital staff did paperwork. While this woman suffered, she was begging for help. The medical worker was more concerned about administrative tasks than waiting on the patient. She wasn't seen as human. She wasn't seen as urgent. In Chicago, another Black woman was having contraction 1 minute apart. Everyone with basic medical knowledge know that means birth is imminent. That is an emergency, but they sent her away. And 8 minutes later, she gave birth on the side of the road. Her baby could have died or she could have died, and it was completely preventable. Where was the outrage by the Congressional Black Caucus? I'm gonna have to stop for a moment because I'm having problems with my lighting. So just bear with me, you all. Just bear with me. Okay. Um. So let me go back to. So, where was the legislation demanding federal oversight for maternal health outcomes? Where were the budget amendments trying hospital funding to racial equity in medical care? Where were they were completely silent because black maternity doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't energize their broader coalition. Black maternity is just one example of their failure. Where is the BC where is the CBC on mass incarceration? Like I mentioned in my revised book, we have more Black Americans in prison right now than were enslaved in 1850. Let that sink in. We have a large percentage of our Black population under correctional control than any country on earth. Where's the CBC's comprehensive legislation to dismantle the school to prison pipeline? Where's their refusal to vote for any budget that funds the prison industrial complex? They show up for photo ops at police brutality protests. But when it comes time to reform the criminal justice system, they're nowhere to be seen. Where is the CBC on Black workers being displaced by illegal immigrants? Illegal immigration has a direct negative impact on Black American workers, particularly in industries where we've historically had employment, such as construction jobs, hospitality jobs, and service industry jobs. These jobs used to provide decent wages and opportunities for Black Americans without college degrees. But when politicians flooded these labor markets with illegal immigrants who are being paid lower minimum wage, who have no labor protections, they can be exploited. That tends to bring down wages and eliminate opportunities for Black workers who are trying to feed their families. This is not about hating immigrants. This is about acknowledging economic realities and demanding that our representatives prioritize our community's economic interests. But the CBC won't touch this issue because the Democrats want Latino votes. Our so called representatives stay silent about our displacement. Where is the CBC on urban gentrification? Black neighborhoods across this country are being systematically dismantled. Black families who survive redlining, survive disinvestment, who held on to properties through decades of neglect, are now being priced out. As I mentioned in my revised book, urban gentrification often happens in Democrat run cities and Democrat run states, which often involves Democrat donors who are real estate developers, and confronting it would require challenging the party's economic interests. And what about reparations? The Democrat Party doesn't want reparations. They claim it might alienate white voters. Our greatest stumbling block in Black America is Black politicians. The Black politicians occupy positions of trust leadership in our community. They have platforms, they have the ability to shape narratives and direct actions. But many today use that position for personal advancement while providing just enough symbolic representation to maintain their seats in office. They get elected by promising to represent Black interests, but once they're in office, they become loyal to the white supremacist financial elites. They keep us loyal to a system that harms us. They stand between us and our liberation. There are a few things that we can do about this. First, we need to select our Black candidates from the soil, meaning from the Black grassroots, who will be made accountable to the African American community and is M1, meaning melanated first, not D1, Democrat first. We need candidates who are committed to specific policies, outcomes for Black Americans, and who will lose their seats if they don't deliver. Secondly, we need Black Americans to join the grassroots community activist movement so that together, Black Americans who are GRCAM members and African immigrants who are GRCAM members, both of us groups can build an independent political power beyond the two-party systems. It means community organizations, economic corporations, political education, media platforms that are accountable to only to Black communities. Third, we need to demand economic tangibles for our vote. Fourth, we need to expose politicians who don't want to carry out our interests. We need to document these politicians every time they choose to run for office. We need to call them out. Fifth, we need to build alternative leadership structure that bypass these stumbling blocks in Black America. We need community organizers, independent media figures, Black grassroots activists, and Black advocates, and Black business leaders. The CBC has never had our back because they're in the pockets of the white supremacist financial elites. They were meant to manage us and contain us. Please leave a public comment about the topic in the comments section below this audio podcast and share with your friends on all social media sites you are on. This will help get the ball rolling. Our second topic, far right wing evangelical Christians use scriptures to justify anti-Black racism. In my revised book in chapter 3, I called On Faith, I discuss how the white supremacist financial elites use religion to justify their anti-Black racism. When Europeans first came to our continent, they didn't have anything going on in Europe. Just read about the Dark Ages in Europe. But as soon as they stepped foot on the African continent, all of a sudden, Europe became wealthy. I wonder how. Right-wing evangelical Christians are not new. It's the same white supremacy that has been terrorizing African people and Black people for centuries. Just rebrand with a cross and a flag. The Ku Klux Klan claim to be Christians. The far right wing evangelical Christians want to justify their horror of cattle slavery when they were mistreating my ancestors like livestock. They twisted scriptures to fit their talking points. They lied and said God cursed Ham in the book of Genesis. They claimed Black people were divinely ordained to be slaves to white people. They preach from Ephesians about slaves obeying their masters. They cherry pick verses about submission and obedience, and they build a whole religious institution around the idea that slavery was not just permissionable, but holy, sanctioned by God Himself. Now, after 1619 to 2019, the 400-year is up, and America is in judgment for her sins against Black people, and global white supremacy is coming to an end. They use scripture that speaks endlessly about liberation, about freedom, about justice, about loving your neighbors, about the dignity of all people made in God's image. And they weaponize it to justify the most brutal system of humanity, exploitation, this continent has ever seen. That's history. That's heresy dressed up as holiness. White preachers told my ancestors that their suffering was God's will, that their chains were divine destinies, that obedience to their masters was obedience to God. But here's what they didn't count on: Black people reading the Bible for themselves. Black people learned about the Exodus story. My ancestors discovered the prophets raging against injustice. We found Jesus overturning tables and declaring good news to the poor and freedom for the oppressed. We found a God who sides with the marginalized, who hears the cries of the suffering, who promised liberation. This gave rise to people like Nat Turner and Richard Allen, who created the AME, African Methodist um, oh, sorry, it's a big word. Episcopal Church. He had our own. We had our own theologian traditions that recognize the Bible as a freedom text, not an oppressed manual. That's the Black church tradition at its best, a counter narrative of the heresy of white Christian supremacy. Now, fast forward to today, and what do we see? The same playbook, just updated for modern times. The far right evangelical in 2025 and beyond is white supremacy and religious domination. And it operates with the same core values that justified slavery, that justified Jim Crow, and justified lynching. The belief that America is a Christian nation, that Christian means white and conservative, that God has ordained a specific racial and social hierarchy, and that maintaining that hierarchy is not just political preference but divine mandate. They claim this nation was established as a Christian nation, which requires completely ignoring the Enlightenment principles actually embedded in the Constitution. They claim divine sanction for the racial hierarchy that exists since 1619. They're saying that white domination is not a historical accident or ongoing injustice, but God's design. That's the same theology that justified slavery, just dressed in patriotic language. They quote Romans 13 about submitting to government authorities. When they want Black protesters to accept police brutality, but they completely ignore the insurrection on January 6, 2021, when they wanted to resist government policies they disagreed with. They talk about biblical manhood and traditional family values, which somehow always means patriarchal control. They preach about law, order, and respect authority, but only when that authority is reinforcing systems that maintain racial hierarchy. They they fear losing control, having to share power, and the nightmare of being held accountable for centuries of injustice against Black Americans. The far right wing evangelical Christians allow them to frame their racism as righteousness, their desire for domination as divine calling. They know deep down that the system they built was unjust. They know that slavery was evil. They know that lynching was terrorism. They know that mass incarceration is modern slavery. They know that police brutality is state violence. But rather than confronting that knowledge and pursue actual repentance and offering reparations to descendants of American slaves, they double down. They claim that maintaining these systems or preventing any real dismantlement of their legacy is against God. First, the far right wing evangelical Christians provide moral cover for immoral positions. When you can claim that your political beliefs are not just preferences but divine commands, you insulate yourself from critique. You transform policy debates into theological battles. That is why um, far right wing evangelical Christians fight so hard against teaching accurate history about racism, because if people understood the true horror of what was done, the religious justification would be exposed as blasphemy. So they ban books, they whitewash school curriculum, they call critical analysis of racism divisive. They protect the mythology because the mythology protects their power. Secondly, it creates an in group solidarity and out group hostility through religious identity. By identifying Christians narrowly to mean white conservative nationalists, they create a tribal identity that merge race, religion, and politics. If you're black, if you're progressive, if you question their theology, you're politically opposed, you're spiritually suspect, you're outside the community of the faithful. This is how they maintain cohesion when even when they're actually policies harming their own communities economically. Third, it weaponized victimhood. The far right wing evangelical Christian claims prosecution constantly position themselves as the embattled minority fighting against secular forces trying to destroy their way of life. They control enormous political power, mass wealth, significant media apparatus, and substantial institutional influence, but the prosecution narrative serves a purpose. It justifies aggression as defense. It's the same logic that allowed slaveholders to claim that they were victims of northern aggression, that allowed segregationists to claim they were protecting their community, that allowed policies to claim fear even as they killed unarmed black men. Fourth, it distorts the actual teachings of Jesus beyond recognition. Jesus talked endlessly about the poor, about wealth being an obstacle to spiritual life, about the last being first, about welcoming strangers, about caring for the marginalized. The Sermon on the Mount is basically a manifesto for economic justice and nonviolent resistance to oppression. Jesus was executed by the state for threatening the religious and political establishment. His entire ministry was a challenge to hierarchy, to his religious hypocrisy, to nationalism, to the way power operates. The far right wing evangelical Christians take that revolutionary message and turns it into a defense of empire, of wealth, of nationalism, of the very system Jesus opposed. It's theological manipulation of the highest order. So, what do we do about this? There are multiple strategies, and we need them all. Number one, reclaim the theological narrative. We cannot cede scriptures to people who distort it. Black Christians, progressive Christians, Christians who actually take Jesus seriously need to be loud and public about what the Bible actually say about justice, about liberation, about the treatment of the poor and marginalized. We need to expose the heresy of right wing, the far right wing evangelical Christian for what it is. We need to show that using religion to justify racism is not traditionally Christian. This requires Black churches and progressive faith communities to be more vocal, more organized, more willing to directly challenge the theological lies being spread. Number two, build political power independently of their religious framework. We need to organize politically, economically, culturally in ways that don't require their approval or permission. We need to build power through voting registration, through economic solidarity, through media creation, through community organizing that speaks to um, material needs and practice justice. We need to show that their theology is not just morally wrong, but practically harmful. That policy is justified by white wing evangelical Christians actually hurt communities, and that alternative exists that serve people better. Strategy three, form coalitions across religious and secular lines around shared values or of justice. Right wing evangelical Christians thrive on division. It wants to separate Black Christians from non believers, progressive Christians from secular progressives, religious people from each other based on narrow theology. We break their power by refusing those divisions. We find common cause around justice, around equity, around human dignity, around practice policy that serve communities. We show that morality is not monopolized by their version of Christianity, that people of all faith and no faith can work together for the common good. Strategy four, oppose the material interest behind the theology. Far right wing evangelical Christians are not just about sincere religious belief, it's funded by wealthy interests who benefit from maintaining economic hierarchy. It's supported by political operatives who benefit from maintaining white voter blocks. It's promoted by media figures who profit from outrage and division. We need to follow the money, expose the grift, show how ordinary believers are being manipulated by elites who don't actually care about their faith, but use it as tools for maintaining power. When people see they're being used, some of them wake up. Strategy five, protect democratic institutions and norms against Christian nationalist captures. They're actively working to take over school boards, local governments, state legislatures, courts, all with the explicit goal of implementing their theology as law. We have to show up to these fights, every single one of them. You have to vote, run for office, support candidates who will resist Christian nationalist agendas, defend separation of church and state, protect the rights of everyone to not live under someone else's religious dictate. Here's the bottom line: far right wing evangelical Christians are the most dangerous domestic threat to multicultural democracy right now because it provides religious justification for authoritarianism. It mobilized millions of people who believe they're fighting a holy war, and it has significant institutional power already embedded in American society. But it also is vulnerable because it's built on lies, because its theology collapsed under scrutiny, because its policies harm even many of its supporters, and because it's fundamentally misunderstood both Christianity and America. The same way our ancestors survived slavery, despite slaveholders using Christianity to justify it, the same way the civil rights movement prevailed despite segregation using Christianity to oppose it. We can defeat far right wing evangelical Christians, but it requires clarity about what we're facing, strategy, thinking about how to counter it, coalition building across differences, and absolute refusal to let them monopolize morality, faith, or American identity. They're scared because they're losing demographic dominance. They're desperate because history is moving against them. They're dangerous because desperate, scared people with power to uh, with power do terrible things, but they're not inevitable. They're not invincible, and they're not actually Christians in any meaningful sense. They're white supremacists in a costume, and we've been fighting white supremacy for 400 years. We know how to do this. We just have to do it again with the same courage and faith that got us through it before. Please leave a public comment about the topic in the comments section below this audio podcast and share with your friends on all social media sites you are on. This will help get the ball rolling. Thank you for listening to our audio podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Please be sure to click the subscribe button and like button. If you see a survey and they ask you if you like the stream, say yes. It's educational. Give us a good rating because those ratings help recommend more content. That's the new YouTube. Please please give us a good rating. Put me on blast by telling all of your friends, families to listen to our content on our YouTube page. I'm going to send a challenge out to everybody that's listening to this audio podcast. I need all hands on deck to support our film project so that we can move beyond cyberspace and get our story on the big screen, to let the Black world know who we are and who we're trying to fight for, our people that's trapped in American ghettos, specifically in Black Chicago. Quote, Hood Liberator made in Chicago, the war against Willie Lynch begins. You can be a part, quote, unquote. You can be a part of this historic docudrama by contributing to our crowdfunding pages, which are on GoFundMe page, our Buy Me a Coffee page, or our PayPal Giving Fund page, which will help fund marketing, promotion, clearance, legal, and general expenses. If you are a U.S. citizen, then I recommend that you donate to our PayPal Giving Fund page because you can use it as a tax write-off because this is a legitimate 501c3 nonprofit faith-based and community advocacy organization. You can also purchase items from our virtual store or purchase my revised book. The ebook is $9.99. The softcover book is $15 plus shipping and handling. We appreciate your support. You can find all of the links below this audio podcast in the comments section below. Thank you all for listening to our YouTube live or the replay. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing. I would like to thank all of you for listening to our audio podcast on Spotify and pod chaser. If you are new to Help Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast, welcome to our safe space where we discuss Black issues and African issues. We do this every week. This will conclude our audio podcast for today. We will see you on the next episode. Peace and blessings.